All right. So we good? Everybody can hear me?
Can.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into it, let's just have a little discussion. So choices, we all have them, and we all make them. When it revolves around the truth, these choices primarily affect your gates. All right. That's why we're on this subject now. With everything that's happening now, your choices will have a significant effect on what's happening to you when this world really starts to fall apart. Um, Maury and me dad talked about, the food supply chain this morning. It's starting to disappear. You know, choices are to be made in these coming months, and what we will eat and so forth. So when it comes to your eyes, you can choose what you see and what you listen to. You can choose to see the world for what it is, which is, in my opinion, is a melting pot of disaster. Or you can choose to look at what Yahuah says you should do for said disaster or not. It's your choice. Same thing for when it comes to your ears. Um, you can choose. You have the ability to choose what you hear and what you listen to. You can choose to hear we're in the pandemics. Stay in the house, but you can go to the grocery store if you need to. Or you can choose to listen to such things as if Elohim be before you, who can be against you. You know, my point is that with everything in life comes choices. Unfortunately, our ancestors made some wrong choices. And that's why we're here today. The Father is setting things up so we won't make these same bad choices or decisions. The only catch is it's up to you as an individual to choose what you're going to do. How are you going to react to today's disasters? Who are you going to listen to? And what things are you willing to hear? Are you going to choose to hear what the world has to say and live by that? Or do you choose to listen to what the word has to say and live according to that? All right. We haven't even gotten on the things that come out of your mouth. I know Maury Sharon touched on that a couple of lessons ago, and we will revisit that maybe next week. I mean, the week after next. But your mouth has a lot to do with humility and the lack thereof. All right. That's where that whole testing your Yahuah thing comes into play. So I think that's what we're gonna talk about today. It's gonna be your ears. So let's get started. All right. So let's start with a little bit of a review. All right. We started off with the eyes. We talked about how the eyes were a part of the major centerpiece when it came to good versus evil or light versus dark. What does light versus darkness represent? We know it's a metaphor for a person's spiritual condition. Either you're walking towards life or towards death. It's a straight and narrow path. All right. We have to remember that it is essential as a child of Elohim that we are mindful of what we look at and what we see. But if the eye is bad, the body will be full of darkness. In other words, how you see reality determines whether you are in the dark or not. All right, so let's go back to Acts 9, 1-19. The Father saying we need to revisit that for a moment. More specifically, let's read verses 4-8. You can read 1-9, 1-19 on your own time, but let's focus here on verses 4-8. And he fell on the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? And he said, who are you, master? And the master said, I am Yahusha, whom you persecute. It is hard for you to kick against the prize. Both trembling and being astonished, he said, Master, what do you wish me to do? And the master said to him, arise and go into the city, and you shall be told what you have to do. Now pay attention to this part right here. And the men journeying with him stood speechless, hearing indeed the voice, but seeing no one. And Shaul arose from the ground, but when his eyes were open, he saw no one. and leading him by the hand, they brought him into Damascus. Now, see, I missed this during our last lesson. Even though the men heard Hamashiach or the Messiah talking to Shaul, they saw nothing. Isn't this going on today? There's a separation happening. Okay. On our last lesson, we saw how Yahuah could either make things plain for you or not. Though we know people who read the scriptures all the time but can't seem to get any context out of what they're reading. They're blinded by the words of the Father. Or better yet, how many people do you know that can't seem to see what the Father is stirring up in the pot? Can't see what's cooking in the kitchen, as the folk used to say. That goes back to one of my earlier statements that this truth is not meant for everyone. Out of the billions of people in this world, the Father chose to remove the scales from your eyes. Think about that. How does the word make you feel when you hear it? Do you agree and apply it to your life? Not just some of it, but all of it. Or does it bother you and you find fault with it? All right. Ask yourself these questions. Search yourself. I'm going to ask you 2 more times. All right. So let's look at Proverbs 15 and 30. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and the good news refreshes the bones, or it makes fat the bones. Now, again, how does a word make you feel? It should give you substance when you hear it, read it, or see it. The good news should give health to the bones. It should be a blessing to you. Now, this is compared to Psalms 19 and 8. The precepts of Yahuah are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahuah is pure, enlightening the eyes. The word for pure here is bar. All right, it's beloved, also pure, empty. But look at that, it says choice. And then you have barar. To clarify, i.e., brighten, examine, make bright. Again, choice is chosen. All right. Psalms 51 to 10. Created me a clean heart, O Yahuwah, and renew a right spirit, O Ruach, within me. So this is all about choices at this point. So I ask one more time, just so we're clear, how does the word make you feel when you hear it? Do you agree and apply it to your life, or does it bother you and you find fault with it? Now, by accepting this covenant and being a willful participant of this truth, the word should clean you inside and out. No questions asked. There shouldn't be any yes, I believe in the Father, but, or I just think, trying to inject your own opinion into it. Remember last lesson we talked about conditions. Everybody wants something from the Father. They will all be on board with what you have to say as long as it lines up with what they believe. So my point is that what was said from the beginning, and just with most of us, what you agree to at the time of your immersion should always stand. This word is food for the soul, or the nefesh. You're supposed to grow and become strong in it, not weak and malnourished. Right. Ecclesiastes 12, 13, 14. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear Elohim and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Elohim will bring every deed into judgment, with every secret thing, whether good or evil. If any of you have problems, this is the time to get it taken care of. We're supposed to be practicing getting the leaven out continually, not just during unleavened bread and Passover. Let someone know what's going on. If something that you just can't break away from, let a more know. If you have a problem with a brother or sister, let them know. Let's practice actually being a family or a mishpachah. You can't expect to get into the kingdom still holding on to things that could be resolved rather quickly. Remember, these things are being recorded. This may be a rehearsal, but you still have to act like you care enough to try. All right.
More, when you say recorded, can you kind of shed some light
I will. I'm going to give that verse a little later. I
O-
know about heaven and earth recording it
Okay.
as a witness.
Okay. So since you're going to use heaven and earth, then I'll use the other one. So
Okay.
everyone knows that the Malachim also does the recording.
Hmm.
There are other writings that talks about how, as Moray Kanan's going to share, heaven and earth does a recording, but also when the books are open, there's a book of remembrance that's taking place, and his messengers are the ones that relays the message. So we got to be mindful that these multiple recordings that's happening is going to work for us or against.
You did a lesson on that, didn't you?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight.
Hallelujah. All right. Ephesians 4:18 to 20. Life from the life of Elohim, because of the ignorance which is in them, by reason of the blindness of their heart, have without remorse abandoned themselves to the commission of every uncleanness with inordinate desire. But you have not thus learned Hamashiach, or the word, inasmuch as you have heard him and been taught by him, as the truth is in Yahushua. With respect to your former course of life, to put off the old man, which is corrupted by deceitful desires, and to be renewed in the spirit or the ruach of your mind, and to put on the new man, which is a conformity to Elohim, is created in righteousness and in holiness, or set apart of the truth. Wherefore, putting away all falsehood, speak truth, everyone to his neighbor. Simply put, you have to choose. As a matter of fact, I know you heard it growing up in the church, but time is running out. Yes, the Father gives us a lot of time to practice and get this right as best as we can, but there's always room for improvement. Where's the growth? Whenever you learn something new, these things need to be applied to your everyday life. You know, that's how we grow in the Word. Psalms 13:3. Consider and answer me, O Yahuwah my Elohim. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. How many of us say something similar? Now, in that same breath, how many of us have the faithfulness that David or Dawood had? Dawood or David petitions Yahuwah to answer him. He shows faith as he affirms that Yahuwah is his Elohim. He didn't run from what the Father had or did for him. Neither did he question anything. So it meant something to the Father to hear David say this, and we'll read Psalms 4:1. Answer me when I call, O you, O Elohim of my righteousness. You have given me relief when I was in distress. Be gracious, or Hanan, to me and hear my prayer. So again, some of us run from what the Father has for us because it's not what we want. We fear that something we can't handle, but how can we grow without listening and doing what the Father wants us to do? Or wants us to. Appealing to Elohim's righteousness, David finds confidence in examples of Elohim's deliverance. Just as he has in the past, Elohim, the one who upholds justice, will graciously respond to David's cry and restore him. If we want that same response, we have to put in the work. You can't ask. There should be sleek out for that. You can't ask the Father for something just to get an answer, and you not adhere to it because it's not what you want, or it's not what you wanted, or it's something that you don't think that you can handle. All right. Now back to Proverbs 15:30. All right. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and good news refreshes the bones. In Hebrew, instead of refreshes, it makes fat the bones. All right. Or dashin. It's a prime root to be fat or to fatten. All right. Specifically to anoint, figuratively to satisfy. And then the PL form is to make anything fat marrowy. Good tidings making the bones fat as if fills them with marrow, or it imparts strength, hence to anoint. Now again, I'm gonna ask the question. It's last time. How does the word make you feel? It should give you substance when you hear it, read it, see it, or even speak it. The good news should give health to the bones. It should be a blessing to you. All right. Proverbs 15:31. The ear that listens to life-giving reproof will dwell among the wise. This is compared to Proverbs 6:23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life. Proverbs 15:32 to 33. Whoever ignores instruction despises himself, but he who listens to reproof gains intelligence. The fear of Yahuah is instruction in wisdom, and humility comes before honor. Proverbs 25:25. Like cold water to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. And Psalms 42:2. My soul thirsts for Elohim, for the living Elohim. When shall I come and appear before Elohim? And coincidentally, this is a picture of Damascus, and I don't know why I put it there, but it's funny because they're at war right now because Israel just bombed them yesterday. That's pretty interesting. But hearing without seeing, the word must become a part of you, meditating on it day and night, thinking of it when you wake up and when you lie down, even when you dream. There should be an endless wanting for it. So that was just a little bit of a review. So let's go ahead and actually get started with the lesson. All right, Ozen, the ear or hearing. This now occurs almost 200 times and is applied most often to man, though it is used of a dog's ear in Proverbs 26 and 17, and of a sheep's ear partially rescued from a lion. You can read that in Amos 3 and 12. All right. Now, anthropomorphically, Elohim is said to possess ears or hearing, and anthropomorphically means attribution of human motivation, characteristics, or behavior to inanimate objects, animals, or natural phenomena. Now, the ear can perhaps best be studied under three headings: as an organ of hearing, as a part of the body subject to symbolic actions, and as a sign of responsiveness and understanding. These usages are frequently interrelated. The ear as a physical organ of hearing has been implanted by Elohim, who himself can hear, and we'll see an example of that in Psalms 94 and 9, which what we read last lesson, I should say. He who planted the ear, does he not hear? He who formed the eye, does he not see? Now, David uses a teleological explanation of phenomena argument for the nature of Elohim from the human ear. You know, that's what this was. He who planted the ear, does he not hear? Now, this is in contrast to the man-made ears of idols who hear nothing at all. We'll see that in Psalms 115 and 6 and Psalms 135 and 17. They have ears but do not hear, noses but do not smell. In Psalms 135 and 17, they have ears but do not hear, nor is there any breath in their mouths. Now, when the physical organ is mentioned, frequently hearing is a good translation for ears. To speak in the ears of someone is to speak in his hearing. You see an example of that in Genesis 44 and 18. Upon this, Yehudah came near to him and said, O my sovereign, let thy servant speak a word in thy presence, and be not angry with thy servant, for thou art next to Pharaoh. Let me pull your attention so as you won't be upset. That kind of thing. Most references to the ear or hearing involve a response from the hearer. To hear or to incline the ear means to pay close attention. For example, to the words of the wise. See that in Proverbs 22 and 17. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. So here we go again with conditions. You know, Father, I need this. Father, I need that. The question is, are you doing what the Father asked you? Remember, this isn't something for nothing. You have to actually walk out what the Father tells you to walk out. Proverbs 2, 1 and 2. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Proverbs 4 and 20. My son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Proverbs 5 and 1. My son, be attentive to my wisdom. Incline your ear to my understanding. And Proverbs 23 and 12. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. See, listening without applying won't help anything. What's the point of having so-called direction in your life when you won't follow it? All right, so let's talk about how often Elohim pleads with wayward Israel to listen and heed his warnings in view of impeding judgment. We'll see that in Hosea 5 and 1 and Jeremiah 13 and 15. Hear this, O priests. Pay attention, O house of Israel. Give ear, O house of the king. For the judgment is for you. For you have been a snare at Mizpah and a net spread upon Tabor. Now, I'm not here to tell you to not observe the signs that are being laid out before us, right? I know it may have sounded like that for past lessons, but what I'm saying is that you should be able to discern what things to pay attention to versus what things not to pay attention to. Worrying about the lack of learning, worrying about how the lack of toilet paper is going to hinder you in some shape or form won't help any. Or making sure you stay 6 feet away from someone while breathing in the same air as they breathe. You get what I'm saying? Where's the discernment in these things? All right? Let's continue. Jeremiah 13 and 15. Hear and give ear, be not proud, for Yahuah has spoken. Now, just like Mori Yeshurun has said, don't test Yahuah. No one is safe. Just because you know of the Father won't save you. It gives you a chance, but if you're not doing what he says, you're better off being a part of the world anyway. All right? Even heaven and earth are called to listen as witnesses of the covenant promises of Israel. Deuteronomy 32 and 1 and Isaiah 1 and 2. Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Isaiah 1 and 2. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth. For you who has spoken, children have I reared and brought up, but they have rebelled against me. The opening call addresses the heavens and the earth as a pair. Throughout the Bible, the Father has said, it's not just me that's watching what you're doing. I got the heavens and earth recording against you, just like Maury said, So we must conduct ourselves accordingly. All right. You got to understand, you guys, the Father has eyes in all places watching what we're doing and what we're saying. Predictions of natural disasters are said to make the ears ring or tingle. So shocking is the message. We will see examples of that in 1 Samuel 3 and 11, 2 Kings 21 and 12, and Jeremiah 19 and 3. 1 Samuel 3 and 11. Then Yahuah said to Samuel, behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel at which the two ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. 2 Kings 21 and 12. Therefore, thus says Yahuah, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I am bringing upon Jerusalem and Judah or Yehudah such disaster that the ears of everyone who hears of it will tingle. Remember when I would say that in the opening, you're going to have to make choices once these things really start to happen. Jeremiah 19 and 3, you shall say, hear the word of Yahuah, O kings of Yehudah, and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus says Yahuah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I am bringing such disaster upon this place that the ears of everyone who hears of it will tingle. Remember what I said in the intro, you will have to make choices when these disasters really start to take shape. Right? The disaster the Father is going to bring will be so great that even those who are not directly affected will be impacted by hearing the news. Everyone will know the name of Yahuwah and every knee shall bow. Now that's going to lead us into hardness and heaviness. All right. Twice the term hardness or heaviness is implied to the ears of Israel. They have stopped their ears from hearing the word of Elohim through the prophets, for Elohim had brought on them judicial deafness. And we'll have more on this in a minute, but you're going to see two examples here. One is Second Chronicles 24 and 19, and Nehemiah 9 and 30. Yet he sent the prophets among them to bring them back to Yahuah. These testified against them, but they would not pay attention. Nehemiah 9 and 30. Many years you bore with them and warned them by your spirit through your prophets, yet they would not give ear. Therefore you gave them into the hand of the peoples of the lands. Seems like people are still doing this now. I'm talking about people in the truth, right? You just have to ask the question, do you not see or hear what the Father has going on? Take this diet challenge that Lamadyahu has us doing. It's not a coincidence that we are doing this at the same time of the Homer challenge. This is all a part of that preparedness that we are going through. Right? These things are all for a reason. Jeremiah 25, 4 and 5. You have neither listened nor inclined your ears to hear. Although Yahuah persistently sent to you all his servants the prophets, saying, turn now, every one of you, from his evil way and evil deeds, and dwell upon the land that Yahuah has given to you and your fathers, from old and forever. So basically, what all this is saying is that it's not like none of us don't know what's coming. Right? The thing is that there are so many of us who aren't willing to do what's necessary to be accepted in the sight of the Father, or to do what we need to do to get ourselves ready for what's coming up in the future. It's literally like pulling teeth. The hardness of heart is still very heavy within this truth. So again, remember what Mori Yatron said, don't test Yahuah. All these I told you so's and this is Yahuah bringing judgment on you, how do you know? This isn't the time for self-righteous judgment, but the time to actually look within ourselves and get it together. History is most definitely repeating itself. And there's a test going on. You know, the only thing is that, thanks to the Father, he's not only given us the blueprint to which we should live our lives, he's given us the answers to the test. Your walk in this truth is an open book. All you have to do is follow the instructions. Like the idols, the nations had ears but could not hear. In Jeremiah 5 and 21. Hear this, O foolish and senseless people, who have eyes but see not, who have ears but hear not. In Deuteronomy 32 and 6. Do you thus repay Yahuah, you foolish and senseless people? Is not he your Father who created you, who made you and established you? Isaiah 6 and 9. And he said, go and say to this people, keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Right? The people's ears are called uncircumcised, closed to the words of their covenant Elohim. Jeremiah 6 and 10. To whom shall I speak and give warning, that they may hear? Behold, their ears are uncircumcised. They cannot listen. Behold, the word of Yahuah is to them an object of scorn. They take no pleasure in it. In Isaiah 53 and 1, who has believed what he has heard from us? And to whom has the arm of Yahuah been revealed? This is the difference from knowing of the Father's laws versus knowing them. The difference is not only knowing who the true children of Israel are, but learning from their mistakes as to not repeat them. Not thinking that we're owed something. Yahuah owes us nothing. This is all for us to gain and to lose. Hearing and understanding are closely linked on occasion. We see an example of that in Job 13 and 1. Behold, my eyes have seen all this, and my ear has heard and understood it. Now, Job was telling the people around him that, hey, I'm just as wise as you are. The only difference is that he wasn't speaking against the Father. Right? He knew that what was happening was for a reason. He had a choice to react negatively, but he didn't. Right? All about those choices again. Proverbs 23:13 condemns refusal to hear the cry of the people and thus remain ignorant of their plight. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. Proverbs 13:24 whoever spares a rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Or who loves him disciplines him early. In Proverbs 22:15 folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from them. Now, since children are characterized by folly, like we just read in Proverbs 22:15, proper training and discipline ensure that they will remain on the right path throughout their lives. So Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, even when he's old, he will not depart from it. So with all this, we can view this as stressing the idea of discipline and not necessarily just physical punishment when it comes to understanding this walk. All right. My point is that we know and at some point agreed to this covenant, right? So we've all read the law, statutes, and commandments. The Father has said, "Hey, if you don't adhere to these things, there will be a punishment for them." So we need discipline, which emphasizes teaching or instruction. This is the name of the game right now. Proverbs 1, 2, and 3. To know wisdom and instruction to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing. All right, so in its original ancient Near Eastern text, Proverbs was probably understood as advocating for physical discipline of children, as we read in 22:15 and 23 and 13, but it seems only to do so for times when discipline by teaching is insufficient. And we'll read that in Proverbs 29 and 19. By mere words, a servant is not disciplined, for though he understands, he will not respond. In other words, like we say as parents, if I have to say it one more time, I'm going to give him a belt. I know we all been there. We all read that. So Proverbs makes the reason for discipline as important as discipline itself. The discipline of parents, like the discipline of Yahuah, should be done to benefit the child, or in this case, us. That's why you're getting basically the same lesson from 4 different ways, right? The father feels as though we really need to read to have some reinforcement on this issue. All right, let's keep going. But the man who turns a deaf ear to talk of murder is commended. We see that in Isaiah 33 and 15. He who walks righteously and speaks uprightly, who despises the gain of oppressions, who shakes his hands lest they hold a bribe, who stops his ears from hearing of bloodshed and shuts his eyes from looking on evil. So this is talking about righteous living as defined by the law, especially the standards of justice and fairness in judgment and leadership. So this whole slide right here, again, is just me saying you have to be able to walk the walk as well as talk it. And I think that's probably the problems that we're seeing with some people who are not really getting what's going on today. They're not really living out that outer man. Remember, we always talk about the inner man versus the outer man. You know, that inner man is not lining up with the outer. I think that's what part of the problem is. Or it could be perception or spiritual perception. All right, which is the ability to see beneath the outward form to the underlying, often hidden reality. It is a necessary gift in dealing with people, understanding spiritual teaching and interpreting events. Perception perception is important for effective service, though it is often lacking even among Elohim's people. And then we have lack of perception by those in the Torah or the Old Testament. We're seeing examples in Isaiah 43 and 19, Exodus 5 and 2, which was Pharaoh. So Pharaoh had a hardness of heart, and we'll get on more hardness of heart in a minute. So Isaiah 43 and 19, behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. I think that also goes to what Netanyahu's vision was. And my Isha brought that up too. So like I said, we'll talk more about that later. Do you not see the opportunity the Father is placing before us all? This is the reason behind the bus of preparedness. He's making a way. He's setting things in place. And sadly, there are still people who refuse to see it that way. There is still much vanity and foolishness in the camp. Stuff like this has to be purged out. That's why in every other Maury's lesson, there's a part about self-accountability. And make no mistake about it, just as Yahuah is saying these things to you, this goes for me as well. I'm above no one. All right. Exodus 5:2. But Pharaoh said, "Who is Yahuah that I shall obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know Yahuah, and moreover, I will not let Israel go." Now we don't even have to go that deep with people today. All right. There's always one who's going to say, "I know the Father, but," just being stiff-necked. Remember, by accepting this covenant and being a willful participant of this truth, the word should clean you inside and out. No questions asked. 1 Samuel 6:6. Why should you harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? After he dealt severely with them, did he not send the people away and they departed? Right? So with hardness of hearts, this denotes stubbornness and rejection of Elohim's will. Primarily in scripture, a persistent inner refusal to hear and obey the word of Elohim. Also, in a more general sense, an uncaring, unsympathetic attitude towards other people. If you listen to Maury Meda's lesson today, there will be a need for servitude, right? Because Elohim is sometimes depicted as hardening Pharaoh's heart. These passages present a challenge for interpreters seeking to understand how the concepts of Elohim's will and human responsibility for personal decisions relate to one another. We're going to have to learn how to deal with people in righteousness and in truth. A lot of the bickering, a lot of the backstabbing that's going on right now, that's not that's not going to be accepted. It's not going to be accepted if you try to go to the land, or it's not going to be. It's most definitely not going to be accepted in the kingdom. So with that hardness of heart, it comes a negative meaning. In the Pentateuch, hardness of heart always denotes a negative character trait in humans. It refers to stubbornness that refuses to listen to Elohim or to obey him. This hardness causes people to fail to respond in a positive way to evidence of Elohim's will as manifested by the plagues of Egypt or Mizraim, or to the word of Elohim spoken by Moses or Aharon. In Exodus, it is Pharaoh, his servants, or the Egyptians as a whole who are characterized as having this attitude. In Deuteronomy, hardness of heart also includes a lack of compassion and charity toward other humans. That lack of servitude. Thus, King Shaun of Heshbon was hardened and would not allow the Israelites to pass through his land. And we see an example of that, Deuteronomy 2:30. But Sion, the king of Heshbon, would not let us pass by him, for Yahuah, your Elohim, hardened his spirit or Ruach and made his heart obstinate, that he might give him into your hand as he is this day. Things like this happen when you put yourself at the center instead of the Father. You become blinded or deaf to the idea that the Father is supposed to be the head and the center of your life. Instead, it all becomes about you. So, and with that, now we get into the realm of humility. And I'm thinking that's going to be our next lesson when dealing with the mouth. All right. Moreover, Moses warns his fellow Israelites not to be hard-hearted and thus fail to provide for the needs of the poor among them. Deuteronomy 15:7. If among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that Yahuah your Elohim is giving you, and you should not harden your heart or shut your hand against your poor brother. These are the instructions about caring for the impoverished of the community. Care for the poor should be motivated by concern for the need of others, not by a desire to make a profit from their misfortune. If you see your brother or sister in need, what's your first thought? Is it to help or talk about why they're in that position in the first place? Again, humility, right? As disobedience towards Elohim, we see this is more examples of kinds of hardness of heart. We see this in Psalms 95 and 8, which is referring to the disobedience of the Israelites in their wilderness wanderings. Psalms 95 and 8. Do not harden your hearts as at Meribah, as on the day of Messiah in the wilderness. Right? You can't forget the one who brought you out of your personal tribulation. Who saved you from yourself? As the church says, who showed you a way out of nowhere? Right? Let's see what happens when we lose our focus. This is kinds of hardness of heart continue. We see examples in Ephesians 4 and 18, Ephesians 2 and 12, Proverbs 28 and 14, Proverbs 23 and 17, Ezekiel 11 and 19, Ezekiel 36 and 26, Zechariah 7, 11 to 13, Proverbs 1, 24 to 28, Isaiah 1 to 15, Psalm 37, 1 to 2, Romans 2 and 5, and Hebrews 3, 12 to 15, and Hebrews 4, 5 to 7. All right. So Ephesians 4 and 18. They are darkened in their understanding, alienated from the life of Elohim because of the ignorance that is in them, due to their hardness of heart. Your ignorance toward and of Elohim and his ways can and will lead to enmity with Elohim, resulting in the need of reconciliation. Ephesians 2 and 12. Remember that you were at the time separated from Mashiach, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without Elohim in the world. I know what this means, right? In today's terms, we were all once blind and or deaf to who the Father really was. We didn't properly know the Word as the true light of our life. We're going to have to learn to help one another instead of hurting one another. There's no room for that in the kingdom. Like I said before, to tell you the truth, there's no room for that now. If you can't get it right here, you think you're ready? You think you're ready for the kingdom? Or rather, yeah, are you ready to be in a set apart community? Because everybody wants to go back to the land, but is everybody ready to be in so close of proximity to each other? Can't think about stuff like that. Proverbs 28 and 14. Blessed is the one who fears you, who are always, but whoever hardens his heart will fall into calamity. Proverbs 23 and 17. Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of Yahuah all the day. This warns against envying the wicked and encourages the righteous to look to the future instead. All right, so stop worrying about what you don't have and understand what the Father has already given you. Don't you know how far ahead in the game you are just by knowing his name? There are so many things you could be doing right now that have absolutely nothing to do with the Father. I know that for my own sake, I shouldn't even be here right now. And just like in Acts 9, the Father has a purpose for you, but we have to have an understanding on how to live up to that expectation. Being rebellious against the Father and his laws isn't a good start. All right. To have envy towards the wicked implies that sinners sometimes find success. But what is that success without being backed by the Father? How far can one ride on that success? You may see some things in your life as a struggle, but remember the lesson we had. This is all a test. And personally, the goal of these tests are to prove to Yahuah that you can handle his laws, statutes, and commandments, right? Because that's what everything should come back to. How do I resolve this issue? Let me see what the scripture is saying in the matter. That's where we should be right now. That should be your mindset when you go through things. Remember what Job said. See, Job could have took it a whole different route, but because he had the mindset of, hey, let me just sit down and see what this is all about, instead of just going completely negative. And that's what I mean again about those choices that we talked about in the beginning. It may sound a little, it may not, it may sound far-fetched when I say that this is a test, but it really is. You're gonna see who you run to when this stuff really goes down. Who are you gonna call upon when it starts to happen? All right. Now, this is what we should strive for right here. Ezekiel 11:19. And I will give them one heart, and a new spirit of ruach I will put within them. I will remove the heart of stone from their flesh and give them a heart of flesh. All right. Out with the old, in with the new. This should give you a reason to know him. Right? This should give you a reason to want to obey him. Get a better understanding as to why he does and says the things that he says pertaining to our lives. It's not because it sounds good, it's for correction and right ruling among the people. The very first lesson we talked about, building the foundation, right? Like I asked before, what good is direction if you won't follow it? Ezekiel 36:26. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit of ruach I will put within you. And I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. All right. So the word for flesh in the Hebrew is basar. All right. It comes from the Hebrew 13:19, which is flesh from its freshness, by extension the body. All right. It's a prime root to be fresh, i.e., full, rosy, figuratively cheerful, to announce glad news. All right. Be a messenger, preach, publish, show forth, bear, bring, carry, preach a good tale, good or good tidings. All right. Now, this is where we still are. Right here in Zechariah 7:11-13. But they refused to pay attention and turn a stubborn shoulder and stop their ears that they might not hear. They made their hearts diamond hard, lest they should hear the law and the words that Yahuah of hosts has sent by his spirit through the former prophets. Therefore, great anger came from Yahuah of hosts, as I called and they would not hear. So they called and I would not hear, says Yahuah of hosts. Just as Israel's stubborn refusal to listen to the prophets and repent resulted in the judgment that the prophets warned them about, this can happen to us personally and collectively. All right, meaning by yourself and as a whole. You just can't escape that type of judgment, especially being a part of this truth. It makes it that much worse knowing right from wrong, as our ancestors did, but still choosing to do wrong. Proverbs 1:24-28. Because I have called and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded. Because you have ignored all my counsel and will have none of my reproof. I also will laugh at your calamity and I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you. Then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me. Let's continue. Isaiah 1:15. When you spread out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Psalms 37:1-2. Fret not yourself because of evildoers. Be not envious of wrongdoers, for they will soon fade like the grass and wither like the green herb. In Romans 2:5. But because of your hard and impudent heart, you are storing up wrath for yourself on the day of wrath when Elohim's righteous judgment will be revealed. In Hebrews 3:12-15, take care, brothers, lest there be any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living Elohim. But exhort one another every day, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. For we have come to share in Mashiach, if indeed we hold our original confidence firm to the end. As it is said, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in rebellion. All right, and Hebrews 4:47. Again, in this passage, he said, they shall not enter my rest, since therefore it remains for some to enter. And those who formerly received the good news failed to enter because of disobedience. Again, he appoints a certain day, today, saying, through David so long afterward, in the words already quoted, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. How long will you wait to see? How long will you wait to see and hear what the Father is saying to you? How long will you continue to do the wrong thing when you know what you should be doing according to the Father's law? Prayers are pointless and ineffective due to the people's rebellious attitudes and actions. You can't come to him when you feel like it, especially without the right intent. All right? It's time to choose who you're going to serve. On the surface, it may not look so bad. Right? The things we say and do in our eyes may be fine as of right now, but take a step back and then step back again. Now look at the whole picture. Right? There won't be any excuses when the time comes. You can't say, well, Father, I didn't know. Oh, well, okay, Father, tell me what I need to do now. All right. When all this time you had the choice to hear and listen to what you needed to do. I'm simply saying is that I want us all to make it. I do. The thing is, I can't make you want the same thing. You have to have a want or a need of this for yourself. Right? Your eyes and ears need to be open and paying attention to the words of the Father in its entirety. Right? That bus of preparedness will be long gone with you standing on the side of the road. Right? Any questions pertaining to the lesson? All right. Maria Yashabama.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Well, if our hearts and minds are clear, let us pray. Baruch atah Yahuah melech haolam. Abba Yah, we come before you as humbly as we know how. You see our hearts, you know our thoughts and our minds. We allow this word to penetrate deep into us. Let it be on our minds as we sleep and as we go out throughout days. That we continue to examine ourselves before you, before the light of your word. For without you, we can do nothing. We need Mashiach all the way. We want to be branches upon the vine that are fruitful. So prune us where we need to be pruned so that we can bring forth more fruit. We don't run from your correction. We embrace it. We know that you chasten those whom you love. And Father, we thank you for guiding us down the path of your righteousness. Keep us in that way. Allow the Malachim to be around about us as we're walking in this world, and you've protected us thus far. We pray not only for ourselves, but all those who are calling upon your name around the world. Abba Yah, we lift up our hands to you, for you are our strength and our Redeemer. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, who has redeemed us to be back in your presence, we thank you and we give praise. Hallelujah. Amen.
I mean,
Amen.
I mean,